Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and reviews. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Tell me how amazing it is. Hit the subscribe and put us on your notifications. Be like, we want to listen to these guys. Then strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us future fitness questions or have us answer something that you may think is a crazy good question. Also, our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Free blogs, free guides, and programs for purchase. Social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram is Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Okay, dude. So I was on my trip.
Oh,
and I saw this little meme.
Hold on. Where'd you go?
I went to Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, I guess I'll start with that because I wasn't going to start there, but I was going to tell you about the meme that I saw.
You're looking very chocolatey, very brown, very tan.
So.
Yeah. Well, a little taste of Edwin, man.
Yeah. Did you know in Mexico, they're going to put a law that you can't wear like a Trump is my president stuff there?
Oh, for real? No way.
They're thinking about doing it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Or no MAGA hats.
Why would people there even be wearing that shit? Like, I guess like American tourists?
That's how they treat immigrants.
Oh, dang. You know,
I wasn't going to start with that, but I'm just saying it's getting kind of scary out there that they're just pulling people without,
dude, like
I mean, the holding a Marine person. Where are all the criminals?
Mm-hmm.
That's what
they're not important. They are getting the criminals, bro. They are.
Why are they picking up somebody outside of their hearing?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to legally become American citizens. I think it's just to hit a quota. It has nothing to do with.
Oh, definitely. That's what you're talking about. Yeah,
because they want to do that stuff, and you know, it leads me to this, dude. If you can't criticize your own side, you might be part of a cult.
Mm-hmm.
So this is for liberals too, right? And people, I hate both sides because I believe in individuality and individual things, right? And this even holds true in fitness, other things. You got to be able to think like an individual.
Yeah.
And when you group think and you could have a hard time criticizing the side that you believe in so much, there's a problem with you, the individual. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people may feel attacked right now.
Yeah.
But it's pretty true.
And I think, you know, maybe I should be careful saying this, but if you do feel attacked, you might want to think about why. Right? Mm-hmm. Why do you feel attacked? What's the problem?
Yes. You know, there's things that Republicans do I like, and then there's things that Democrats do that I like. Like, I could be honest, like, there's certain things I like about RFK and he's doing. There's some things that Abbott has done recently. Let's go through them. Like the THC veto, right?
Yep, he vetoed THC, which was real out of this world. I was not expecting
surprised,
that, dude.
but it's all political. It has nothing to do with.
I'm sure it's money or something.
Yeah.
Right?
He probably got a big THC money, and then he put it in the food labels.
Yep.
Now let's say this with food labels, it's still not going to change obesity.
I did. Yeah, I saw some fitness influencers who were kind of talking about it because one of them that I follow lives in Texas too. And you know what's funny is that it made me think about one of the podcasts that we had recently where I was talking about the like snacks and stuff that you get from Mexico. Yeah, it says like they have excessive calories.
Excessive calories.
Yeah, and like all this stuff on there.
Excessive soda.
Yeah, and it's like we kind of are having the same thing now, right? And food products now. Who knows? It might make someone think twice about something, but it's not the cure. Right, to obesity.
Habit at the end of the day, application and habit, right? Now, where I didn't like what he did was vetoed the $400 million for starving kids, poor kids. That was federal money, not even money coming out of the state of Texas.
And that's the thing too, because like,
Poppy Trump,
man, dude, like
that he wants to support.
You know, my daughter's in public school, SAISD, which is probably like one of the most like oldest and also I'd probably say poorest districts in San Antonio, and they do a lot of stuff during the summer, dude. They're calling phones and sending out text messages. Hey, we're having food drive, you know, this day, or come by at 12 to 1 and pick up lunch for your kid, like blah, blah. Because it's like some people send their kids to school not only for education, but just so they can like eat and stuff, you know. And so it sucks, man, because I think a lot of people really rely on that, you know, especially I remember when I was younger, and I'm sure when you were younger and having your kids, you know, we didn't have any money. That was helpful, you know.
It is. Yeah.
I would go to food drives and stuff and pick up something just so we had food at home, you know.
Yeah, and just like I'll give you a perfect example. I like Bernie Sanders and the Medicare for all idea, right? But I would piggyback on top of that and be like, I like still having the free market on the side there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to add and buy your own insurance on the side as you're doing the Medicare for all, give people more options. And also, if you have Medicare for all, it's not tied to your job. And recently we've had a talk with the financial advisor because something's going on. And in businesses, they call benefits the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Right. Because now you're handcuffed to that job because of your benefits.
Right.
You should not be picking a job based on your benefits. You should be picking a job based on the job itself. And so, and it's more of a complex than just, hey, let's do this and that. I'm going to admit that, right? It's not like, let's just do Medicare for all. And no, but a mixed system is a better system. Just like inclusion. So there's this soccer pundit. I think he's a little racist now at this point, right? Because American sports and soccer is already exclusive, right? Because it's a pay for play model.
Okay.
So it's not very inclusive.
Right.
But he's like, we should make it more exclusive because we need to pick 11 men who work together and all. It's already exclusive. That's the reason why American soccer is training. In every other country in the world, they actually pay young kids to play, not them pay into it. And it's very inclusive. Yeah. And that's why they have better athletes that they're getting.
Those like soccer players.
It's happening in basketball too.
17, 18. They're super young, dude. And playing on professional teams.
Yeah. And it's because of their models. Our model is broken because you have to pay for everything.
Always money.
Yeah. How are you going to get someone out of poverty if they have to pay for everything?
Don't buy
Answer my question.
Don't buy coffee in the morning.
Oh yes, that $5.
I figured it out.
So those are like some of the things I was thinking about, and two, like history and how being over there, because you get TikTok and Instagram over there, we talk about things from the one point of view, right? And so American point of view is like Mexico is the problem, or whatever.
It's like that moment in time where TikTok was banned or whatever, and everybody was getting a bunch of TikToks from other countries and like realizing like, oh shit, like what's going on out there? You know, they have different perspectives. They talk about stuff differently. They are looking at different things. They were talking about America, right? And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I came back so quickly, because they were like, oh, wait a second. Now people are like waking up and saying shit. We gotta put the blindfold back on. Yeah,
pretty much, right? And so like part of their TikTok was, a lot of people, and this is even Europeans that are in Mexico. So right now they're having gentrification in Mexico City because of Americans are remote jobs living in Mexico City because it's cheap. Causing prices to go up over there. And they're like, the Americans are the problem, which recently in Spain too, are taking away 65,000 Airbnbs because they're like, you don't meet the requirements to have one because you have to live there a certain amount of time because their housing was going up and capitalism is good, but there's an extreme end of capitalism and there's an extreme end of socialism. People need like a mixture,
especially especially on those like smaller countries or like island countries and stuff where you have to like really manage population or how things work and stuff. Like I know countries that are
right now, Puerto Rico's fighting a lot with the United States because their companies trying to come in and privatize beaches, and the people over there believe all beaches are public.
They belong to the people, right? Yeah, and it's like I had a friend who had an opportunity to go overseas and work somewhere, but it was like the only way that you can get into this country was if you had like a special qualification, a special job. They needed this special thing. You fit the criteria. You do all this stuff, and it was like you couldn't just go and just start living there. Like you had to have a reason for being here. And in some cases, I'm like, I think that's fair.
And another one for Mexico that America's the problem is people talk about the drug cartels. And they're like, the drug cartels wouldn't be around if Americans weren't buying so many drugs. Also, if America wasn't selling them firearms. And so they're illegally getting firearms from America back down south. But we don't want to talk about that. We're the problem.
Yeah.
We're the problem sometimes. Even if you look out throughout history, there's a CIA and Iran thing where it happened in the past, and that's why Iran's like how it is now. And
sticking our fingers in too many puddings.
And I even thought about, we talked about like processes are getting abused, the whole Iran situation, and processes are getting abused again. It's a sovereign nation, and to attack them without Congress, and this is what the fear is of turning into like a Nazi nation is. Destroying processes. Yeah. And that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Because we need to talk about fitness because we're a fitness podcast. So anyways, I saw a meme and it was talking about like longevity. You want to know the best diet for longevity? when you talk to people who actually live a long time?
Okay.
Cigarettes and coffee for breakfast.
You know,
I'm just saying, a lot of people who live to 100 have a cigarette and coffee.
I was just having this conversation this morning. So we're going to England pretty soon. We are celebrating Camille's granddad's birthday. He's turning like 90 or something like that. That's a long time, right? This guy never drinks water. He drinks like 3 bottles of Chardonnay a day. A day.
He's hitting it.
And it's like, live to 90. You know, it's like I've seen stories of people who live to be like 100 or whatever, and they're like, what's the secret to living a long life? And they're like, 3 shots of whiskey a day, you know, and it's like,
I drink a Dr. Pepper every day.
Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But I think it kind of begs, or not begs, but like it brings up a question of like, what really is longevity, right? What really is living a long life? What's healthy? What is this? Do you need to eat super clean and everything all the time? Because I mean, we even see people who are quote unquote fit, right? Who die of a heart attack or, you know, get a cancer or something like that. And so I don't know.
So I think a big part of like longevity is the ability to keep moving regardless.
Yeah.
Right. Hiking, playing with kids. There was a client that I had recently and she's older and she was talking about playing with a kid and she's like in her 70s on the floor. Yeah. And I was like, that's amazing. Because that actually helps you with your mobility, your strength on the ground, getting going. That's a big deal.
Huge. Yeah.
You know, from a nutritional end, this is where I think, okay, what's the secret to cigarettes and coffee, quote unquote, right? And it has to do with the suppression of appetite. And so a lot of fitness people talk about calories in, calories out. The suppression of calories and not causing inflammation or visceral fat around the belly is probably a bigger factor in your longevity, being able to have the correct amount of calories and not overconsume or underconsume.
Seeing people overseas, you just went overseas kind of recently too. I don't know what it's like in Spain or things like that, but in England, bro, breakfast is 2 cigarettes, tea, and like maybe a croissant. And then you're drinking tea and smoking cigarettes all day. So you're like you're constantly intaking caffeine. You're constantly intaking nicotine. And they just don't eat. Ever, bro. Like
we don't need as much food as people make it out to be.
Yeah. And it's
food is an American obsession, right?
It definitely is, right? And so
I'm working through it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Really, really, really. Yeah. Like it is, as I'm trying to cut or be healthier, increase my endurance and stuff, I'm like, man, this is hard, dude. Like it's tough. And I understand, you know, why a lot of people struggle with it or turn to things like GLP-1s and stuff like that, because it's like, it's fucking difficult. And managing the appetite, the habit, like you said, behavior, thing like that is hard to do and break.
But putting those labels on is going to create everything better.
Or taking a red dye 40, you know, we fixed it.
Yeah. Yay. No more overconsumption.
Who knew it was that easy?
So for diet, like that, I think is the big deal, right? Because actually being in a caloric deficit and over time, you have autophagy and other things that happen to the body that allows it to recover and feel better. So like I overate for the last 3 or 4 days. I could tell like today I really have had like protein. That's it for probably about like 70, 80 grams of protein. Actually, probably less, probably 70. Yeah, 70 grams to 80. And all I had is that this morning, and I feel fine. You know why? Because I just ate a shitload.
Yeah, you're in a surplus.
I'm going to feel hungry later on in the day a little bit, but after this, I'll have some more protein and a little bit of vegetables and fruit. I'll be completely fine. And it just, I don't think we need to eat as much. What we need to do is you have your undereaters that do need to eat more quality food. And then you have your over excessive people. Just eat less overall.
Yeah.
Get your gut a little healthier.
Both categories would likely benefit from having more nutritious food. Right. I think that's one of the bigger things too, is in terms of overeating, is people tend to eat a lot of food that has no nutritional value. And then your body's not getting satiated. Right. So you're like, well, I'm just going to eat more and more and more. You know, it's funny. The other day,
it's because of red dye 40.
The other day, Camille really wanted some cookies. Right. So we were we went to the dollar store, and usually when she wants cookies, we'll go to HEB and we'll buy the HEB bakery cookies. Right. And she'll have a few and be fine. This time
but not you.
No, I'll slam the whole thing. This time we went to the dollar store and they didn't have like, bakery cookies, obviously. So she got some like Chips Ahoy or some shit like that. And, she was just like going at him.
Wow.
She was like, dude, I almost ate like the whole damn like thing. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And she was like, I think it's because they don't use like real ingredients or they're engineered for you to just keep eating them. Right?
They are engineered.
Yeah. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Like, the HEB cookies, I'm sure that's just like sugar, eggs, oil, and whatever. And
actually real like simple.
Right. Is it healthy? No, but it's like it's just simple.
There's no red dye
right?
40.
Yeah. But then
I'm making fun of it, but red dye 40 does matter. It does a mess with it.
And then you look at the ingredients label on the Chips Ahoy, and it's fucking half the damn container, and you're like, damn, it really is a difference.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think the most underrated part of longevity is the social aspect of it. A lot of these people love life. They have fun. They enjoy company. I remember there's this lady at the gym. She was like in the mid 90s and she was the most vibrant, happy person before she passed away. And thinking like she just loved life. She was like 95, 96.
That's fucking awesome.
And it's just about those moments.
Yeah.
And you know what else I learned in Mexico? I learned some facts. I learned some history.
Okay.
Did you know why they created tortillas?
No.
I learned they never had tortillas till the Spaniards came over.
Oh.
The reason why they created it is because the Native Americans were slaves to the Spaniards, and the Spaniards are like Arab. Even though Spaniards will not admit that they're Arab. Mm-hmm. They don't like the Arab side. So I learned that too.
Okay.
And Arab food, you have the pita bread and then you have a sauce, right?
Yeah,
typically.
like a naan, right?
A naan, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they wanted
a similar thing.
The Mexica, which is not the Aztec's name, right?
Right.
So the Mexica to actually make them that. And that's when they made up the tortilla and the salsa because they didn't have creams either.
Yeah.
So that's where it started.
Interesting.
Yeah. And a fun fact, because you know the Mexica, right? So the reason they're called the Aztec in American culture is because scholars couldn't decipher post and pre-Columbus because Mexica, Mexica, is so close to Mexico, and they would get confused. And the Aztecs, that's what they're called in America. They're called the Aztec because there was like Aztlan, and that was the land that they were on. And so they just used that as the name for the Indians when they're actually really called the Mexica.
Interesting.
Crazy, right?
It is crazy, yeah. Going to Mexico when we went to Cozumel and did like one of the excursions to go to like I think it was like the Mayan ruins or something.
It's
like
Mayans
that.
down south. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It was really cool, man. And like hearing all of the history and stuff like that and seeing it all. I wish I knew more. About it.
So I told Amanda, I was like, well, maybe I'll start using the podcast and like find out Mexican history. You know how many people don't think about like Mexican history when it comes to America? And Texas, California, New Mexico, all that was actually Mexican land before it was taken by the Americans.
Yep.
So the Americans were actually the immigrants. So they say this is our land. It was not their land.
No, this is ours, bro.
Right. And so they don't realize, I had a talk with a guy who's very good in history today. He's like, at some point, all your family descendant was immigrants. And so that's how America was made. The diversity is actually what created these cities to be better.
I always say, I'm like, there's no Americans. Nobody is an American unless you're a Native American.
Why is New York so great? The greatest diversity there is. Why is California, LA area, typically all these areas that create a lot of economic powerhouses tend to have diversity, and they happen to be big cities.
Yeah, unless
I would argue San Antonio has more diversity today, is creating more income economically than it did in the past when it wasn't as diverse.
That's the way it is, man.
Diversity is a good thing.
It is.
No, exclusion for soccer. Exclusion.
Yeah, we need more.
So, did you understand that the bodybuilders are transitioning?
Oh yeah, I saw that. It was a funny perspective right now. Do I agree with it 100%? No, but I think it's a good way to look at it sometimes and look back at yourself and say like, because a lot of the times I'll see videos of like, even other stuff where they're like, oh, this compression shirt really helps like form your body to look more like muscular and stuff like that, because that's what guys want, right? And I'll see in the comments and they're like, you do realize this is like gender affirming clothing, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And so this guy was talking and he was like, bodybuilders, right? He said transitioning, and I'm not sure if that's like the best word, but his point was that if you're a bodybuilder, right? Let's say you're a guy and you go to the gym and you want to be big and jacked and have muscles, right? So let's say you take testosterone, or I don't know, you work out a whole bunch or whatever, so that you feel more masculine, right? Because at the end of the day, that's sort of the goal, right?
Okay. Why do I lift personally? To feel more masculine, to feel better,
to feel stronger. To fulfill your role as a man.
Right? I want my shoulders to be wider because I want to look more quote unquote manly. It just is what it is.
It just is what it is, right? And he was like, that is the same concept of someone going and saying, I want to feel more feminine, right? So I'm going to wear these clothes, or I'm going to talk like this, or grow my hair this way, or paint my nails, or whatever it is, right? And it's like, what really is the difference there? And it's like, okay, you want to feel more masculine, so you go and do these things. This person wants to feel more masculine, and maybe as a female, so she goes and do those things too. And it's like, you do realize like we're all just doing stuff to like validate ourselves, right? I guess in a certain way. So it was an interesting perspective. I think it could maybe make some people go, but again, I don't know how far it'll go.
But it's pretty interesting though.
Yeah. I would imagine, I bet if you told that to a bunch of bodybuilders, they'd probably be pissed off. They'd be like, no, that's not what it's about. Blah, blah. It's different. It's not the same. But, at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's kind of the same. It's a little bit similar.
Yeah, it is, right? And before we got on the podcast, George Side, I just saw a video, and he was talking about how this study, and I think this is what we talk about too, that life is complex. And in the study, it talks about doing 10 reps, I believe it was, like every so often is better for your insulin levels, right? Your glucose levels, than a 30-minute walk one time a day. But he's like, even if that is true, is it better for bone density? Is it better for your cardiovascular health? And that there's multiple things in your health overall. And it makes me think about like bodybuilding and feeling masculine is one item. Like, yeah, but is it better for this or that? And we're talking about longevity again. We'll go back to longevity. You have multiple functions of health. So the problem with studies and fitness is when you isolate one variable, it affects the other variables, but we're not talking about the other variables.
Right.
The body is complex. So I was teaching, I'll give you a perfect example. A lot of my older people, what I do is I segment let's say they're in a walker, how they're going to lift, right? So I might start with the hips and get their hips stronger and core. I usually end with like, okay, now we need to connect the feet back all the way through so that way you can push through. And I literally did this today with my client. He's like, oh, my squat feels better. And he's like, why didn't you start with my feet like that? And I was like, because if I start with your feet and then your hips and then I tell you this and then I tell you this, you're not going to be able to connect it all. And I was like, this is how complex the body is. Has nothing to do with this one thing. I think we need to get away from that in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
You do it all the time, right?
Of course.
This study right here says...
Pushing on my glasses. Actually.
So like, I think what I really want to get out of this is anytime you read a study into health or even medicine, which I think they found out the FDA approved so many drugs that didn't even work, like Sudafed.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
That it's more complex than just one thing.
Yeah.
And placebos are so real.
Yeah. Honestly, to me, I'm like if a placebo, quote unquote, works, then isn't it working? Then isn't what's happening actually happening?
Yeah, it's working. Yeah. Sometimes people, this shows you how strong the body is and
mind,
how maybe
right?
how you can heal yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
And we've talked about that study where they sutured your knee on one group.
Right.
The other group, they actually did the surgery and they both were just fine. Or
even the one that we had where it was like about the guy that was blindfolded while bench pressing. Right. And doing all that stuff. And in the same way that you can use it to benefit yourself, it can also be a detriment, right? Like you could slow your recovery. You could do all of these things just because you're not like in the mindset, so to speak, of like trying to get better.
So as I'm teaching my clients to rewalk, that's a big part of it. Like making them believe that it can happen.
It's so funny because so many older clients, like I'll have them do stuff. Like one of my 70-year-old clients, we're trying to do like more plyometric because I'm trying to make sure that she can step off a curb or like do something and not, break her hip or whatever it is. And I was like, look, I just need you to jump on top of like a 45-pound plate. Like, an inch. Yeah. And she was like, how? Like, I haven't jumped in years, And I was like, you can hold on to this. And, I just need you to get used to it. But there's that huge block, especially as you get older, where you're just like, that is an impossible thing for me to do anymore. I'll never do it again, and I'm like, jump on the plate, please.
And that's why I point out every little thing in your client matters. You see, like we did this a little easier today, or, on our calf raise, you were able to come up a lot higher. You saw like how easy, like you have to point out all those little things. You got to make someone believe before you do anything. I know I didn't send you any studies, but there was a study that I did send you. And did you know looks matter?
Interesting.
Did you read it?
Looks matter.
Yeah, it was a Reddit article.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so in the study, they're like, well, people who look better tend to get things, or they get jobs and la la.
Yeah.
And I was like, isn't this kind of common sense?
Pretty privileged.
I think people don't want to admit the way you look, your height, the way where you grow up, all these things are advantages, right? And so it does matter, right? Like I could be next to a taller guy in the bar. We're both chasing after women. He's just happened to get it. What do I have to do is develop a skill set to be funny, other things like that to attract the same woman.
Be more confident.
Now, at the end of the day, I'm never going to get that initial response that he'll get.
It's just like visual, right?
Yeah.
And I get that. And I think that in a situation there, you just, like you said, you have to build some other aspect of yourself in order to get what you want or need or whatever it is. And I remember when I was younger, I used to always be like, looks don't matter. It's just like your personality.
It's a fucking lie.
Blah, blah. Huge fucking lie. And at the time, I really did believe it. I really did. I was like, this is what it's like. This is how you should be, blah, blah. But now as I grow older and stuff, I'm like, if I hear someone tell me that looks don't matter, I'm going to be like, you're a liar. Because it's straight up like human nature.
Look at the fitness space. The amount of knowledge we have. And then someone could come in here, less experience, just look fit. And people were to assume that they know more than us.
And that's just the way it is.
That's why we have to like constantly do what we do.
Yeah. And, that's human nature. I think it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
And so at the end of the day, like I think too, and it goes back to this point too of like, okay, getting out of your own brain. So if I'm a real pretty girl and I get a bunch of guys,
you're a pretty girl, bro.
Oh, thank you. Hey girl. And I get a bunch of guys messaging me all the time. And they're like, oh my God, there's like all these guys. There's girls out there that don't get messages all the time.
Ever.
And you're like, how come? Guys are just perverts or whatever. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, look how you already created a story based on your perception of life. And this goes back to being in a cult. If you can't criticize your own side, it's because you've lived a certain way and you can't see the other side.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have problems with that overall. And two, come on. When it comes to looks, we can go into the office right now. A guy looks very fit, goes in with a suit, everything like that. People are to treat that guy way better thinking he has money versus somebody who comes in just like we do.
Raggedy.
And I know somebody personally who went into an Audi dealership who has a lot of money, who purposely didn't dress nice, didn't get any service, and said, fuck y'all, I'll go to BMW, and then bought a BMW because they treated him nice regardless.
Wow.
And he looks at that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing, right? It's like, how are you going to treat me when you don't know anything about me? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys, if y'all like what we do, you can share on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review, hit the like, hit the subscribe, notifications. Also, if you're looking for a place to email us future fitness questions for us to answer, strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com, strengthsolutionspodcast.com for free blogs, guides, and programs for purchase for their website. Strength Solutions Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Deuces.